Nanjala was just a young girl when her life turned upside down. After losing both her parents in a tragic accident, she was sent to live with distant relatives in Kitale. At first, she hoped for comfort and care, but instead, she found coldness. Her relatives didn't treat her like family. They treated her like a burden. Every day, she cooked, cleaned, and worked like a housegirl. They made her sleep in the storeroom, far from the warmth of the other bedrooms. No one asked how she felt. No one showed her love. When Nanjala turned 18, she gathered the courage to ask if they could help her join college. She had big dreams. But her request was met with laughter. "Focus on dishes, not dreams," they mocked. Her heart shattered. That night, with nothing but a small bag, she ran away to Kisumu. Life there was not easy. She found work cleaning a busy bus terminal just to survive. Every day she worked in silence, her dreams buried deep. Then one day, an elderly woman named Mama Kalima noticed her. She saw how sharp and kind Nanjala was. Quietly, she paid for her education. Years passed. Nanjala worked hard and graduated top of her class in real estate. After Mama Kalima passed away, she left Nanjala all her property, including 7 plots in Kitale. One plot held a surprise. It was the very house where her relatives still lived. Nanjala arrived with the title deed. Calmly, she gave them 30 days to leave. On the final day, she walked back through the same gate they once pushed her out of, this time in heels, holding keys, smiling. "I'm not back for revenge," she said softly. "I'm back for ownership." When Nanjala moved in with her distant relatives after her parents died, she hoped they would care for her like their own child. She missed her mother's hugs and her father's laughter. But instead of love, she was given chores. Every morning before the sun came up, she was already in the kitchen, making breakfast for everyone. While the other children watched cartoons or played outside, Nanjala was scrubbing floors, washing clothes, or running errands. No one ever thanked her. If she made a mistake, she was shouted at like a servant. She was not allowed to sit on the main sofa or eat with the rest of the family. They gave her the smallest portions of food and the leftovers when everyone else was full. At night, she didn't sleep in a warm bed like the others. Her room was a dark, dusty store at the back of the house, cold in the night and full of spiders and rats. She cried silently into her thin blanket, wondering what she did wrong to deserve such treatment. Her cousins teased her, calling her the maid girl. Sometimes they would even mess up things on purpose, so she would get blamed. Still, Nanjala remained quiet. She didn't argue. She didn't fight. She just did her work, hoping one day someone would see her pain. Deep inside, she held on to her dream. To study, to make something of herself, to live a better life. But in that house, no one believed in her. When she turned 18 and asked for help to go to college, their laughter cut deeper than any words. "College? For you," they mocked. "Forget dreams. Go wash the dishes." That night, as they laughed and turned away, something changed in her heart. She realized she would never be seen as family there. She was just a shadow in that house. And so, quietly, with tears in her eyes but fire in her heart, she packed her small bag and left. No one stopped her. No one asked where she was going. They didn't know the girl they treated like a maid would one day return, not with pain, but with power. Nanjala had been counting the days to her 18th birthday. Not because she expected a cake or gifts. She knew her relatives would never celebrate her. But in her heart, she saw it as a new chapter. She believed that maybe, just maybe, now that she was officially an adult, they would take her seriously. That morning, after finishing her chores and cleaning the dishes, she gathered all the courage she had. Her hands were shaking, but her heart was full of hope. She walked up to her aunt and uncle and softly said, "Please, I want to go to college. I want to study and build a better life." For a moment there was silence. Then laughter exploded around the room. Her aunt laughed so hard she had to hold her stomach. Her cousins joined in, pointing at her like she had just told the funniest joke. Her uncle looked her up and down and said with a smirk, "College? For who? You? You better focus on those dishes. Dreams don't suit people like you." The words hit her like a slap. Her cheeks burned with shame, and her eyes filled with tears. But she didn't let them fall, not in front of them. She turned away, walked back to the kitchen and continued cleaning. But something inside her broke that day. The little flame of hope that had been burning in her heart turned into a fire. She knew then that no help was coming. No one in that house would ever support her dreams. If she wanted to change her life, she had to do it alone. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, she sat in the dark corner of the storeroom, her few belongings in front of her. She packed quietly, folding her clothes carefully, wrapping her tiny notebook full of dreams in an old scarf. Then, with one last look at the house where she had been treated like nothing, she stepped out into the cold night. No money, no place to stay, just faith. They thought they had crushed her, but they had only set her free. Nanjala walked through the night, unsure of where she was going. She didn't have much, just a small bag, a few clothes, and her dreams. Her heart was heavy, but her feet kept moving. All she knew was that she couldn't stay in that house another day. She boarded a lorry that was headed to Kisumu, sitting quietly at the back, her thoughts racing. She didn't know anyone there. She had no money, no plan. But she had hope, and for her, that was enough. When she arrived in Kisumu, the city felt big and unfamiliar. She wandered the streets, tired and hungry, looking for a place that would give her a chance. After 2 days of sleeping on benches and going without food, she found work at a busy bus terminal. The job was hard. She was given a broom, a mop, and told to clean the floors, the waiting benches, and sometimes even the toilets. The pay was small, barely enough to buy food, but she took it with both hands. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise to clean the area before passengers arrived. The noise, the dust, the shouting of conductors, it became her new normal. She worked quietly, keeping to herself, while others saw her as just a cleaner. She never stopped dreaming. At night, she would sit alone and write in her old notebook, ideas, goals, and prayers. People passed her every day, never really seeing her. But still, she kept working with a quiet strength. She smiled at strangers, helped lost travelers, and never complained. Though she was crushed, she was not broken. She believed that her story was not over. She believed that life would one day turn around. She had escaped a house that treated her like a nobody, only to find herself scrubbing floors for survival. But in her heart, she knew that this was just a chapter, not the end. Something deep inside told her that even the dirtiest bus terminal could be the start of something beautiful. All she had to do was hold on. Every day, Nanjala swept the same floors, cleaned the same benches, and watched hundreds of people come and go at the Kisumu bus terminal. Most never looked at her twice. To them, she was just the girl with a mop, always in old clothes, head down doing her job. But one day, a kind-looking elderly woman sat on one of the benches and watched her closely. Her name was Mama Kalima. She came often, always carrying a basket and a soft smile. While waiting for her bus, she would chat with Nanjala, asking small questions. Her name, where she was from, and what brought her to Kisumu. At first, Nanjala was shy. No one had shown interest in her story for a long time. But Mama Kalima had warm eyes and listened with her heart. Slowly, Nanjala opened up. She told her bits and pieces about her life, her parents, the house she ran away from, and her dream of going to college. One day, Mama Kalima asked, "If you could study anything, what would it be?" Nanjala answered without thinking, "Real estate. I want to build homes for girls like me." From that day on, Mama Kalima saw more than just a cleaner. She saw a bright, determined young woman with a big dream, and no one to help her. Quietly, without telling anyone else, Mama Kalima decided to become the help Nanjala never had. She made a few phone calls, met with a school official, and paid for Nanjala's college fees using her savings. One evening, she handed Nanjala an envelope. "Open it when you get home," she said. Inside was a letter of admission, full payment receipt, and a small note that read, "Go chase your dream. I believe in you." Nanjala couldn't hold back her tears. For the first time in her life, someone believed in her enough to invest in her future. From that moment, Nanjala promised herself she would never waste the chance Mama Kalima had given her. She studied with all her heart, determined to make her proud. A new chapter had begun, this time, with love, purpose, and hope. 7 years had passed since Nanjala's life took a turn. Those years were filled with long nights of studying, early mornings spent cleaning the bus terminal, and moments of doubt that almost made her give up. But through it all, she held on to the belief that one day her hard work would pay off. Mama Kalima's gift wasn't just money for school. It was the spark of hope that fueled Nanjala's journey. With each passing year, she became more determined, more focused, and more driven to succeed. She graduated at the top of her class in real estate. Her professors were impressed by her sharp mind and hard work. Her classmates admired her for overcoming so many struggles to reach that point. Nanjala walked across the stage with her heart full, knowing that the journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. As she held her degree in real estate, she thought back to the days when she used to clean floors at the bus terminal, unsure of how she would ever make it out. Now she was no longer the girl with a mop. She was a woman with a degree, ready to take on the world. Soon after graduation, Nanjala landed a job with one of the top real estate firms in the country. Her name quickly became known in the industry for her sharp business sense, her dedication, and her unwavering commitment to her work. She worked her way up, gaining respect from her colleagues and clients. But no matter how much success she achieved, she never forgot where she came from. She remembered the days when she had nothing, when people laughed at her dreams. At the firm, she quickly became one of the most trusted agents, closing deals on multi-million-dollar properties. It was a dream come true, but it was more than that. Every time she looked at her office, her name on the door, and the achievements behind her, she remembered Mama Kalima, the woman who saw potential in her when no one else did. Nanjala's success wasn't just hers. It was a tribute to the woman who believed in her when the world was against her. One sunny afternoon, Nanjala received a phone call that made her heart sink. Mama Kalima had passed away peacefully in her sleep. It felt like the ground beneath her had broken. The woman who had saved her life, believed in her, and treated her like a daughter, was gone. Nanjala sat alone in her apartment, holding back tears, her mind filled with memories. The soft voice, the warm hugs, the gentle encouragements. Mama Kalima had given her more than a chance at education. She had given her love, support, and a reason to keep going. A week later, after the funeral, Nanjala was invited to a small lawyer's office. She didn't expect anything. She had already received the greatest gift of all, Mama Kalima's love. But when the lawyer opened a brown folder and began reading the will, Nanjala's eyes widened. Mama Kalima had left everything to her. Not just the small house in Kisumu, but 7 plots of land in Kitale. 7. Nanjala was speechless. She had no idea Mama Kalima owned so much. The lawyer handed her the documents, titles with her name now printed clearly on each one. Nanjala held the papers in her hands, her fingers trembling. Among the plots was a familiar address. Her heart skipped a beat. It was the very house she had grown up in. The same one where she had been treated like nothing. The same place where she had once begged for help, only to be laughed at and pushed aside. It was now hers. She didn't know whether to cry or laugh. It felt like fate had come full circle. Mama Kalima had given her the key not just to a future, but also to healing. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. Everything she had once been denied was now in her hands, not out of luck, but because someone chose to believe in her. Looking up at the sky, Nanjala whispered through tears, "Thank you, Mama. You gave me everything. Even after you were gone." Days after receiving the land documents, Nanjala sat at her desk, quietly going through each title deed. She wanted to see where each plot was located. As she flipped through them one by one, she paused when she saw a very familiar address. Her hands stopped moving. Her eyes scanned the paper again and again. It was real. The house she once lived in. The house where she was treated like a maid, where her dreams were laughed at, was now one of her properties. Her old relatives were still living there, completely unaware that the land had changed hands, and that Nanjala, the girl they once rejected, was now the legal owner. For a moment, she didn't know what to feel. The memories rushed in like a flood. The cold storeroom, the harsh words, the mocking laughter when she dared to speak of college. She remembered how small and unwanted she felt in that house. But now she was no longer that girl. She was a graduate, a working professional, a landowner. She visited the area quietly, standing at a distance just to look at the house. Nothing much had changed. The same old gate, the same noisy compound. Her relatives were outside, laughing and talking, living life as usual, never suspecting what was coming. They didn't know that the title deed now had her name. They didn't know that the land they thought they owned had been sold long ago to Mama Kalima, and now fully belonged to Nanjala. She could have reacted in anger, but she didn't. Instead, she walked away that day with a quiet plan. She gave the situation time, prepared everything legally, and spoke with her lawyer. She wasn't out to shout or fight. She was going to handle it with grace, but also with firmness. This moment wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. The same place that once crushed her spirit was now a piece of her future. Life had come full circle, and this time, she held the power, not to hurt, but to reclaim. One quiet morning, Nanjala returned to Kitale, not as the helpless girl they once knew, but as a confident woman dressed in smart heels, her hair neatly tied, and a small envelope in her hand. She walked through the familiar dusty roads, past the shops and fields she used to pass as a child. But this time, she wasn't carrying groceries or cleaning supplies. She was carrying power. When she reached the gate of the house that once felt like a prison, she paused. Her heart beat a little faster, but her face stayed calm. She knocked firmly. A cousin opened the gate, eyes widening the moment he saw her. Whispers started quickly. "Is that Nanjala?" Others gathered around, surprised to see her after so many years. No one knew why she had come. No one expected what she was about to say. She stepped into the compound, looked around the same place where she had once been treated like she didn't belong, and pulled out the title deed. "I'm not here for a visit," she said softly, but firmly. "This house is now legally mine. I own the land. You have 30 days to vacate." At first they laughed. They thought it was a joke. "What are you talking about?" her aunt said, raising her voice. But Nanjala remained calm. She handed them a copy of the legal documents. Every name, every signature, every stamp was in place. Reality started to sink in. Shock spread across their faces. They flipped through the pages in silence, unable to deny the truth. "You have 30 days, she repeated. "I suggest you start packing." There was no anger in her voice. No shouting. Just the quiet strength of someone who had been through pain and risen above it. The girl they once ignored was now the woman they had to answer to. Nanjala didn't come to beg. She didn't come to prove anything. She came to claim what was hers, with dignity and grace. As she turned to leave, the wind gently lifted the edges of her coat. She walked away, not with revenge in her heart, but with peace. Justice had finally found its way home. On the 30th day, the sun rose gently over Kitale, casting a warm golden light on the familiar paths Nanjala once walked with tired feet and a heavy heart. But today was different. Dressed in a sharp suit and walking tall in heels, she returned to the house where her pain had once lived. Her steps were calm, her eyes steady, and in her hand, she held the keys. Keys to the very home that once rejected her. Neighbors peeked through their windows. The gate creaked open. The same gate she had once walked through as a scared girl. But now she stepped in with strength. Her relatives were standing outside, their bags packed, their faces full of confusion and disbelief. Some tried to speak, to plead, but Nanjala didn't raise her voice. She didn't curse. She didn't remind them of the days they made her sleep in the storeroom or mocked her dreams. She just stood there, calm and collected, and gave them a soft smile. "I'm not back for revenge," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I'm back for ownership." The words hung in the air, heavier than any scream. She walked past them, into the house that used to feel cold and empty. Now it was hers. Every room, every corner, every memory, she owned it now. Not just the walls, but the power, the story, the ending. And she had rewritten it beautifully. Not with bitterness, but with quiet pride.